Hi, I'm Dr. Forrest Hartford from Pro Sport and Spine. As a multidisciplinary clinic, we see a lot of hip and groin injuries in our youth athletes, especially those that are involved in cutting sports such as soccer and basketball. In most cases, these injuries and pain are due to simple muscle imbalances or tendinitis. But in some cases, you can have more significant injuries such as tears to the acetabular labrum, stress fractures in the neck of the femur, or FAI, which refers to a bone overgrowth causing pinching between the acetabular socket and the head of the femur itself. Thankfully, most of these injuries result from simple muscle imbalances that are a result of performing the same activity over and over again. In soccer, the balance that we see is a combination of tightness in the psoas, the quadriceps, IT band, adductors, and hip rotators, with weakness in your deep core stabilizers as well as the glute muscles. The combination of tightness and weakness leads to increased pressure on the hip socket, causing inflammation and pain. To check for muscle imbalances at home, you can use a simple series of tests that we will demonstrate with Amanda, one of our certified athletic trainers. To begin, I'll have you please lay on your stomach. First, we'll begin by checking hip rotation. All these tests should be performed side to side to look for imbalances as well as checking for pain. The first test, we will rotate the hip in and then rotate the hip out. We can bend the knee to check for quad length, as well as lifting the leg off the table to check for hip extension and psoas tightness. In this position, we can check hip flexion, as well as hip abduction, the movement of the hip away from the body, or hip adduction, the movement of the hip across the body. If your child experiences pain with any of the previous exercises, or there's a major imbalance from side to side, it's important to have your child evaluated to determine if there's an underlying injury.
Hello, I'm Dr. Sean Spalding from Pro Sport and Spine. Now that we've discovered your child is symptom-free from the previous testing without any major discrepancies, this can be a great time to branch into some stretching and strengthening exercises. In general, hold the stretches for 30 to 60 seconds while performing the strengthening exercises for 3 sets of 12 repetitions. The first exercise we're going to perform is foam rolling out the glute muscles. Start by crossing the leg over the knee while putting pressure on the lateral hip. The next exercise we'll work into is foam rolling the IT band on the lateral hip. And then we will finish foam rolling out the quadriceps, working one leg at a time, being careful not to roll over the kneecap. The next exercise we'd like you to perform is the dead bug exercise. Brace the abdominal and core muscles by pushing them out. Move the knees to 90 degrees as well as the arms. While maintaining a braced core, drive a leg away from your body. To make this exercise more strenuous, perform opposite shoulder flexion with opposite hip extension. The next exercise we can perform to work the glute muscles is the bridge. Drive the hips up towards the ceiling, being sure not to feel overarching or extension through the low back. From here, a great exercise to work the lateral hip muscles is the clamshell. Have the knees stacked at 90 degrees, rotate the knee up towards the ceiling. Be sure not to twist through the low back and feel the burn through your lateral hip musculature. Another great exercise for the core muscles is the front plank. Maintain the position by bracing the core. Be sure not to let the low back sag or arch too far up towards the ceiling. A great stretch for the hip flexor muscles is this half kneeling hip flexor stretch. Actively contract the glute while trying to tuck the pelvis under. Feel this directly in the front of the hip. A great stretch from here would be a quadriceps stretch, where we are still in the kneeling position, but we'll just have you grab onto the foot. Feel this right through the mid-thigh. If we want to stretch out the groin and adductors, we can move the foot further out to the side. Actively lower into the opposite hip, feeling the stretch through the groin and through the inner thigh muscles. A great strengthening exercise for the lateral hip is the jab step. Perform this exercise by shifting your weight onto a single leg. Move the alternate leg diagonally. Feel this through the lateral hip musculature. For another great posterior chain exercise, you can perform the single leg deadlift. Again, get into a single leg hinge position while driving the opposite leg back behind you. Thank you for hanging out with us at Pro Sport and Spine. If you need further information, feel free to contact us.